The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that bears no fruit, he cuts away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, to make it bear even more. You are pruned already by the means of the word that I have spoken to you. Make your home in me as I make mine in you. As a branch cannot bear fruit all by itself, but must remain part of the vine, neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me, with me in him, bears fruit in plenty. For cut off from me, you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me is like a branch that has been thrown away. He withers. These branches are collected and thrown on the fire, and they are burnt. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, you may ask what you will, and you shall get it. It is to the glory of my Father that you should bear much fruit, and then you will be my disciples. The Gospel of the Lord. May we sit, please. When Saul got to Jerusalem, he tried to join the disciples, but they were all afraid of him. They could not believe he was really a disciple. Words we have this morning taken from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 9, 26 to 31. 3 years after his conversion, Paul decided to travel from Damascus to Jerusalem, to join the church in Jerusalem, to join the group of disciples in Jerusalem. However, within those 3 years he was in Damascus, Saul named Paul was actively involved in the ministry of the church, teaching and preaching in the synagogues, defending the identity of Jesus Christ, and also preaching and defending the resurrection story. He became a threat to his former masters, the Jewish authorities, because they couldn't match his wisdom and eloquence, and he was becoming so popular, gaining followers and admirers. So they planned to eliminate him, they planned to kill him. It was to run away from their plan to save his life that Paul decided to relocate to Jerusalem, to join the church in Jerusalem. So we can actually say that Saul moved from Damascus to Jerusalem in search of safety, in search of security, in search of a home, in search of acceptance, in search of hospitality, in search of friendship. Unfortunately, when he got to Jerusalem, the disciples there in Jerusalem, the church in Jerusalem, were not disposed to receive him because they were afraid. They still looked at him as Saul, who was famous for persecuting the church. They still saw in him the man who was in charge of killing their members. They still treated him as a spy. They didn't believe his conversion story. 3 years after, somebody was still talking about Saul and no longer Paul. It took the intervention of a man called Barnabas for Paul to be accepted and integrated in the church in Jerusalem. I don't know how Paul must have felt moving from Damascus to Jerusalem, a 6-day journey, only to be refused acceptance, only to be refused to be accepted. He must have felt lonely, unwanted, rejected, isolated. But I believe that Paul is not alone in this kind of experience. There are still people today who come to church and still feel unwelcomed, who still feel unwanted, who still feel isolated or lonely. On Thursday last week, we had an interactive session with our bishop, the priests, and the members of the church in Slough Pastoral Council or Pastoral Area. Within that interactive session, Bishop David told us a story which he has repeated often before us, the priest, that shortly before he became a bishop, he decided to spend a particular holiday in some part of England. So he traveled to that place, but he decided not to identify himself as a priest. He decided to join the congregation at Mass. On the first Sunday, nobody said hello to him. It was a small church indeed. He was there, but nobody said anything to him. Then he went back to his place. The next Sunday, he repeated and came back for Sunday service or Sunday Mass. Nobody said hello again to him. He felt so bad that for 2 weeks, he participated in that worship. He came to that church. Nobody ever came near to say, how are you? Who are you? What is your name? Or welcome. So he went back to where he was staying and said to himself, I still have 1 week left. There's no need going to this church, although it is about 5 minutes or was about 5 minutes to where he was staying. So he said to himself, I'd rather drive for 30 minutes to another church where I think I might feel welcomed. And that's what he did. Some people still come to our church and they feel that they are guests, either because of the attitude of the priest, who doesn't even care who is new or who is old. He's more conversant with some group of his friends in the parish. Or the priest is domineering. If you are not the way he likes, then you are not his friend. He doesn't talk to you. Or some members are not very concerned about who is joining them. They are just nonchalant, They are more particular about their friends. How do you feel when you come here to worship? Do you feel welcome? Do you feel accepted? Do you feel as part of us? Or do you still see yourself as a guest? Hospitality in the church does not only involve or does not stop at giving a newsletter to someone who's coming to the church. It does not only involve assigning seat to someone. It involves much more than that. It involves and entails playing the role of Barnabas, making someone feel comfortable in the church, making someone feel welcomed, making someone feel accepted, making someone feel loved, despite his cultural identity, despite his economic status, despite his orientation, despite whatever. And that is why today I'm making a charge to all of us. If you are a frequent worshiper here and you have not known people, you only come here, worship and dash out, certainly you are doing a disservice to us. And remember the other aspect of it. When Paul went to Jerusalem, the Bible said he tried to join, but they weren't receptive. So when you come into a new environment, into a new church community, don't just stay there as if you are a lone person. Do not just stay there as if you are a guest. Try to make yourself get integrated into the community. Whether you are on a holiday, by the fact that all of us are baptized by the same water, we have all become shareholders in the same church. Whether it is in Slough or in America or in Nigeria or in Italy, wherever you go as a Catholic, you are a shareholder of that community. And therefore, you shouldn't just stay away from the church because you are a guest. No, you are never a guest in any church. Let us build not just an assembly where we come to worship. Let us build an assembly where everyone is somebody, where everyone is indeed a member, where everyone is loved, where everyone is accepted, where everyone is appreciated, when everyone is celebrated. That is the church. St. Paul must have felt so bad that after 3 years of identifying with the church in Damascus, the church in Jerusalem found it difficult to accept him. In life, somebody will always try to remind you of your past. And that's what they did, the disciples in Jerusalem. When he came around, they reminded him, You are Paul, yeah, but you have always been Saul. You have always been this. People will always remind you of your past. But please do not allow that to take you away from the community of believers. Do not allow my attitude as your priest, whether I am nonchalant or I do not know your name, please always feel accepted. If you feel that you are not, or the priest is not treating you well, please confront me. I have a challenge, and my challenge is I know faces. I hardly remember names. I don't know why. Your gift can never be complete. So if I don't know your name, do not see that I'm being nonchalant. No. If you come to my house, I will tell you how I draw the names of my parishioners just to know their names, their faces. Sometimes somebody will greet me, and if I happen to remember or to know the name, I will carry that name, John. I will go to my house and write, his name is John. John, who comes on Sunday. I'll make a remark to remember it. And every weekend, I go through it. I'm struggling with that because I want everyone who comes here to feel important, to feel valued, to feel appreciated. Let us build a community. Let us build a family. Let us build an assembly where no one will be rejected or feel unaccepted or feel inferior simply because of his past or because of his identity or because of his orientation or because of whatever reason. Paul was rejected. It took Barnabas to get him into the community. You too can be a Barnabas who will make the other person feel welcomed and loved. Let us all play Barnabas and not to leave it to the hospitality ministers. All of us are called. So if you look at someone and you feel the person is new to you, ask him or her, what's your name? You're welcome. Even if he's been here, let us try to know each other. Starting from Nathaniel, trying to know you by my own little exercise.